jump on off from one absolute superstar to the next absolute superstar in a different sport. LeBron James and the Lakers took down the Golden State Warriors in Oakland on Christmas Day. LeBron strained his groin, which doesn't appear to be a serious situation.
Yeah, he's fine.
Yeah, it doesn't appear to be anything serious. But my question is, what should we take from that victory? Because Golden State had all of their people.
Yeah, I think, well, not DeMarcus Cousins, but we don't know what that's going to
be. We don't know what that means yet.
Right. But as presently constructed, right? What you can actually take from it is, number one, Draymond Green needs to fix his jumper ASAP. He looking like Markelle Fultz out there.
I mean, man, dude, what, like, I didn't realize how much of a downgrade as a player he is when he just literally can't make the three. He just can't make it. Literally needs to make the three. Now he's like not like if you were speaking in 2K terms, and I don't know where they have his rating or whatever, but if he was an 87 before, dude, he's got to be like an 80 now.
77.
Something. I mean, it's because you were talking about.
That's what happened. He goes from a 3-and-D to a pure lock.
I mean,
that's not good enough.
And that's not good enough, man. And I mean, the fall off has been it's startling.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's not just the fall. Here's the thing, B, because there's perception and reality, right? Mm-hmm. So the perception around Rondo is that Rondo can't shoot, but the reality is Rondo shoots just fine. He fixed his jump shot at some point in the last few years.
Right.
And his shot is, in fact, at times he shot very, very well.
Yes.
But attached to that reality is that even though he's fixed his shot, he's not a shooter.
Exactly.
You can't just look at his percentages and say he's good or he's bad. Same thing in the reverse for a guy like, say, Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant started the year very cold from the three-point line. Mm-hmm. But we know he's a pure shooter, right?
And he's just from another planet. So
right. So you're like, yeah, but eventually those are going. The problem with Draymond is Draymond looks like a guy who has lost the ability to shoot.
And not only has he lost the ability, he's lost the confidence that he's even capable.
That's my point. So when he's taking the shot, people are like, yeah, you go ahead and shoot it.
Did you see that he had a three that was so wide open, man. There wasn't anybody.
Shot an air ball?
No, he didn't even shoot it. I mean, I'm talking about the next closest man to him was above the free throw line. And he double pump. Oh yeah, I think he did shoot an air ball.
Yeah.
He drove in and tried to shoot a floater and it missed everything. I'm like, dude, you look like one of those kids that I like when you coach youth basketball and you see a kid that's like who is scared to death to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And they just don't want to make a mistake, and then they just like literally throw up an air ball. That's what that looked like.
And so
and it's a disturbing trend, because if you look at his 3-point shooting in his career, in the 15-16 season, he shot like 39%, right? The next season, he shot just under 31%. Then last season, he shot 30%.
Mm-hmm.
Now this season he's shooting 22%. So his 3-point percentage has dropped each of the last 3 years.
What's changed in those last 3 years?
Winning.
Nope. Kevin Durant.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess the dip started. Well, this is their 3rd year together. Yeah, you're right. That could very well be it. It's yeah. You're right.
I think Draymond is not a fundamentally strong enough shooter to not have attention placed on his place in the offense. Mm-hmm. He's not like Clay. Clay could not shoot for the month and pop off on you for 60.
Yeah, he's still struggling though.
He is. But again, if Clay popped off for 75 points tomorrow, would anybody be surprised?
No.
Right. So, and that's the entire point, right? But with Draymond, he needs to be consistent in his attempts, in the spots he's getting his shots, and how often he's getting his shots, and how he's practicing getting those things. And the thing is, they don't practice. right?
Right.
They're veteran. They've been to the finals too many times. They can't practice. It's not they're not practicing because they're lazy. If they practice, they will probably get hurt more. They can't afford that.
Right.
So they can't practice. So he can't really manufacture game-ish practice situations to remedy this problem in practice. So he has to remedy this problem in NBA games when he's getting inconsistent attempts. And now people are starting to leave him open, which adds to the lack of confidence. So I do think that that's something we can legitimately take away from the game.
You know, I don't know that it's even about the lack of shots. I definitely think it's Durant, but I don't think it's the lack of shots. I think it's the way the shots are coming.
That's what I mean. When I say lack of shots, I don't just mean the number, because numbers can be very deceiving.
Yeah.
It's where are you getting the shots? When are you getting the shots? How are you getting the shots? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because listen, him getting a shot off of a pass from Jonas Jerebko is different from a pick and roll with Steph Curry.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's a different shot.
Yeah.
So when I say shots, I don't just mean the number. I mean specifically his role in the offense. And and this is my problem with the Warriors once Kevin Durant got there, is individually, no one is relied upon on a night-by-night basis. It might be Steph and Clay tonight. It might be Kev and Clay tonight. It might be Steph and Kev tonight. Maybe it's a night where, Kevin Durant's so hot in the first quarter, they basically blow him out. People don't even play halfway through the third quarter. Right?
Because you know what's funny is that Kevin Durant is talking about how LeBron's impact on his teammates. I think you got to look at Durant's impact on his teammates. I
don't think it's Durant's specific impact. What I think it is that team was not constructed to have Kevin Durant.
To have a guy like Kevin Durant, to have a ball dominant guy.
Right. And he was added on to that team. And what happened as a result is everything else just gets reduced because it's just getting more and more evenly distributed. And this is his words, actually. He basically said when you're in one situation, you're getting this amount of shots. I think the number he said was something like 17 is what they're getting now. He's like, and then when somebody comes in, that 17 might go to 13. But, out of that 13, these, instead of having 7 great shots, 2 good shots, and 3 bad shots, now you're going to have more great shots. The problem is that math doesn't work for actual basketball players. Some people get worse when they get more shot attempts. Some people get worse when they get less shot attempts.
Yeah.
Some people need to be hot. Some people need to be able to get into a rhythm. And once you reduce those attempts to a certain point, like Clay, there's going to be games where Clay gets 11 shots, never got into rhythm, didn't need to get into rhythm to win. And that's the key, because that's when it can start to happen for games at a stretch. And you can actually start to get cold. I think with Draymond, he became such an ancillary piece to their offense that he's just gone years without having to hit threes. And now he can't.
I mean, he was always like, he was never on, Steph and Clay's level, obviously, but he was at least a guy who could make you pay if you left him open. Now it's the shot you want them to take. It's the shot you need them to take. I mean, if a guy's making 39% of his threes, that's not a guy you want to continue to leave open. That's just not.
Of course.
That's not. But when as it has continued to dip, and now his 3 attempts are down, and you can clearly see they're not down because he's not getting any looks. It's just that he doesn't have any confidence in making any of these looks. And I think that he has grown, because of the type of guy he is, I think he has grown increasingly more insecure about his failures.
Yes.
And because of how he is, that has caused him to be more of even more belligerent than he normally would be.
Because it's humiliating.
And it taps into his insecurity. So I feel some type of way about the long, skinny kid who's clearly the best player on this team, but I can't make an open 3.
Right.
So he's giving me the ball when they double team him, or when they come to try to take the ball out of his hand, and they're doubling off me now because I'm the only one out here that can't make a shot, and the center is in their hole, so they can't leave. You can't leave him, so they're leaving me because we're playing 4 out, 1 in, and I'm the one out. I'm one of the 4 out, and I can't make my shot, and I'm feeling some type of way about that. And that's why I think that really, honestly, and this question was really, this segment was really more about the Lakers. We started talking about the Warriors. I think that Draymond's failures, the issues between him and KD are going to lead to a situation where it's going to have to be him, KD, or Draymond for next season moving on.
Honestly, if they lose Draymond and keep KD, they might be able to keep Cousins. And if that works out, they'll be fine. Either way, they're going to be fine. I'm not with this group of people that thinks because Kevin's leaving that the Steph Curry era is over. Steph Curry I think he's top 3 player in the league. And I think people underestimate just how great he is because he's unselfish. Same thing's kind of happening with Westbrook. He's literally handing the ball to Paul George throughout many moments in the game, and people are like, maybe he's falling off, and it's like, see, this is why we get, you know what I'm saying? It's why people shoot all the time, because the moment you stop and you have 2 bad games in a row, all of a sudden I can't play anymore, and it's ridiculous. Yeah. And Steph Curry has seen some of that. People forget this guy is a 2-time MVP, totally deserving. He was leading the league easily. And I think once he's more relied upon, we will be like, oh no, they're still one of the top teams in the league. It'll just be competitive.
Well, I think that with Steph, the thing about Steph is Steph's game is predicated on one particular aspect of the game, and it's easier. Like it's as simple as if Steph's shot's not falling that evening, then he's not a great player that day. For the most part,
I disagree with you.
If Steph's shot isn't falling, I'm not saying he's not a good player, but he's not a great player.
I mean, you say that about almost any offensive player.
No.
Any perimeter offensive player, like who's a perimeter-oriented player that if their shot's not falling at all, they're not.
I'm not. When I say shot, I'm talking about the long-range shot, the 3. If Steph is not making shots from distance for that particular game, he's not a great player.
I don't necessarily agree with that.
Because
the thing is, it goes back to the Draymond thing. When Steph starts missing, people don't all of a sudden start saying, well, I'm just going to let him shoot another one.
No, definitely
they're afraid he's going to get hot.
But here's the thing. If they're not going in, then they're not a bucket. There's an increased chance
Steph
that
is also a great passer, an above-average defender, and an excellent ball handler.
I disagree. He's above average.
He is above average. I don't think he's a quote-unquote
he's not an above average
defender. He's above average. If you really watch Steph play, he has extraordinarily quick hands, a lot of intelligence, and he gives effort, which makes him above average.
I would say
it doesn't make him good.
I say he's an average defender.
All right, we can leave that debate where it is. I think he's slightly above average, but that's splitting hairs. Either way, he's not a minus on defense, and he's a great passer. Overall, great decision maker, which is not just passing; it's other things. He's a great screener, something he doesn't get credit for.
I do think he's a great screener.
And he's a great finisher. He's a great finisher at the rim, and
he's an outstanding finisher at the rim. But all of that you said from a scoring standpoint is predicated and set up on his ability to make the shot from distance.
Because the opponent believes he can make the shot from the distance, they still play him as if he can, which still creates the space. The issue with Draymond is they don't believe he could shoot, and it's killing the spacing.
Well, I mean, it'll never be that bad for Steph. It'll never be that. I mean, that's like a whole nother end of the spectrum. Well, so that's what I'm saying. Like Draymond can go from being an above average player to an average player or maybe a below average player because he's not making his shot. Yeah. Steph Curry goes from being oh my God, I've never seen a guy like this talent when he's making his shot to a guy who's a really good guard when he's not making his shot.
Steph Curry on a night where he shoots 30% from 3 is still better than most players at his position.
I would say if Steph's not making his 3, if Steph is making 30% of his 3s, I'd say he's a top 10 or 11 guy.
Which is the crazy thing is that Steph shoots so well that shooting bad for him is a completely different definition.
It is.
It is which is kind of the point because Steph has had 3 for 11 nights where they have destroyed people, and he was a big reason they have destroyed people. And that's why I'm disagreeing, because the proof is really in the pudding. His winning record in the last 5 years, I guess it is insane, and he hasn't shot great every single night.
I'm not saying that Steph is the greatest shooter I've ever seen. He's the greatest shooter that ever lived, in my opinion. I don't think there's anybody ever who has played the game who has been as an efficient of a shooter in as many different situations. Like you got guys who are great outside shooters. You got guys who are good mid-range shooters. You got guys who are good spot-up shooters, guys who are great shooters off the dribble. He can do all of that. He does all of it at an elite level. All of it. Every type of way you can put the ball in the basket besides dunking, he does it at an elite level, right? So I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that from when he's not hot from 3, or he's not at his average. So I won't even say hot, because hot for him is 9 out of 10. Right. But I'm saying when he's not making 4 out of 9 or 4 out of 8, if he doesn't shoot at that level, he drops off some. And that's
literally the definition of drop off.
But I'm saying he doesn't drop off to the point where he sucks now and he's not helping your team at all. But he goes from being a superstar to being a guy who's just a good player on the floor. And I think that's the difference between some other guys who are more physically gifted and physically dominant. Russell Westbrook can still be, oh my God, force on the floor, even when he's shooting bad, because he shoots bad far more often than Steph does.
Just the fact that he rebounds it and dunks on you before your guys even realize the ball is out is always a problem.
And that's my point.
I agree with you in principle, but my thing about it with this discussion is Steph, people always fear his shot, which creates the spacing to allow him to do those things. The shot going in is usually what leads to, man, we were up 20 and all of a sudden we're down 6 and we were only 2 minutes from the quarter ending. That's what that creates. And that's what makes the team so difficult to defeat. When Steph is cold, it just makes them almost fair.
But exactly. So essentially, you just supported exactly what I'm saying, right?
No.
So it is, because you said it makes them almost fair, which now makes, because when he's making the shots, it's unfair. You can't beat him. For the most part, you have no shot.
Right.
But when he's not making them, it's like, oh, we got a shot, because that didn't just go in.
When Steph's not making them, he's still shooting better than most people, which is my point. And he's still doing all those other things very, very, very well.
He is, and I don't disagree with that. But what I'm saying is it still takes him down a level to the point where he's far more human, because the other things, the other aspects of his game that he's good at, he can't get to them as well as other people can get to the other parts of their game. And it's all about the physical aspects of it. It's all about physicality. And that's where it goes from being a skill to an actual sport.
I'll put it this way.
Matter.
Steph Curry is usually Steph Curry. And when he's not shooting either as much or as well, he basically just turns into Steve Nash. But he doesn't handle the ball as much because his team is so talented. My point is, if they lose parts, because we're talking about Steph Curry in a world without Kevin Durant and or Draymond Green, I think that Steve Nash part of him will grow more. He's just not using it as much because they have the luxury of not having a high usage on Steph Curry. But from a pure talent perspective, I think his handle is elite. His passing intelligence is elite. His off-ball play as a screen setter and as a threat and a floor spreader, even without the actual shot going in, is elite because of how they play him. And his free throw shooting is elite. And his ability to finish it at the basket is elite. So we're talking about, with all those things being as they are, he's still an all-star point guard when he's shooting 30%. But it's just the usage which is deceptive.
If Steph shot 30% from 3, he's not at all. If for a season. So
that's not Steph though.
But I'm saying, that's the picture you just painted.
No, it's because that changes, because the thing is, if Steph shoots for 30% from 3 for 2 games in a row, your expectation is he's about to blast you.
I understand.
If he shot that for a season, your expectation is, oh, maybe Steph Curry's lost it, which is
Well,
different because then the spacing.
But that's not what I'm really saying. What I thought we were doing was evaluating Steph overall in terms of what his skill set is, and because what I'm saying is, if you take away the outstanding 3-point shooting and you make it just regular 3-point shooting, that's essentially my point. If you take away that, and I understand what you're saying because if it's just in a vacuum, if it's just for a small period of time, we're talking about small sample size of bad shooting, it doesn't really affect the way he's defended because he's still Steph, and it's almost like a deep threat in the NFL, right?
Right. If he's still getting a double team, he's still doing his job.
He's still opening up everything for everybody else. But here's the thing: if he's going deep and the quarterback is throwing him the ball and he had a wide open touchdown and he drops it wide open, and he beat his man the same way he normally would beat his man, but he drops it. When that happens, it affects the team that he plays on. It affects the likelihood of winning that game. He still opened up everybody. He opened up the seams for the tight end. He opened up the flats for the running back. He opened up the slant route for the wide receiver on the other side of the field. He did all of that, but he didn't catch this pass that he normally would catch. So it affects how good or how impacting he is for that particular game, because he had an opportunity to do what he normally does.
And this is where the crux of our argument comes in, because the thing is, every superstar has ups and downs. So we're not comparing him against a field that is perfectly consistent. And when we talk about him coming down, we're talking about him coming down to a level where he's probably at league average if he shoots bad.
Yeah. If he shoots bad, if Steph shoots down to league average for him, he's like,
so what I'm saying,
37%.
If guys miss shots, clearly that means that some productivity is gone. And if you want to define that as that productivity by saying, well, he was less productive, so he was worse, well, that's the definition of it. So that has to be true. But to say that he's not great, for me, the circumstances would have to be that he's not getting credit for the shooting. So they're playing him differently, so he's not able to do other things. And my backup for this is really that Steph Curry has shot the 3-4-11 game, and they have blown people out. And not that he shoots poorly often, but this has happened often within that context. So I don't think he needs to be hot from three to be effective. But the fact of the matter is, he's such a threat from three that he will probably get hot from three at some point. And honestly, the crazy thing is, because of the other things that he does well, he gets some 3-point shots that the best 3-point shooter in history should never get. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes he's standing wide open in the corner, but you look at the whole play, it's because of how he set the screen and fooled his guy and all this other stuff. And so, I don't know. I think Steph is more than just a 3-pointer by enough of a margin that he's still an all-star in games where he doesn't shoot well. And when his usage rate goes up, I think he'll have more assists and free throws as necessary, and Golden State will still be an incredible, incredible threat, even if Draymond is completely washed and KD leaves. That having been said, we should hop on the Lakers before we change topics real quick.
Yes. Like, originally my question was, is this something that should we overreact over this, or should we react to this and say, hey, this says something about who Golden State is long-term and who the Lakers are long-term? Do we feel and the Lakers' ability to compete, not only to compete, to beat the Warriors in their own building? Granted, it's a regular season game. Do we look at that as evidence maybe that the Lakers don't even really need to make any of these trades that we're hearing discussed mid-season? Or should they just ride out the maturation of LeBron's supporting cast?
No, I think they still have to make moves. In fact, I would actually go the other direction. I think their issue is they have swung and missed. Well, you could argue that they swung and missed on 100% of their high draft picks, except for the guy who they let go, Julius Randle, who is roughly about what you would expect the productivity. What was he drafted? 7th, I think.
Something like that, 5th or 7th.
Now, while there are some obvious all-time greats drafted at 7 and below, usually once you get to 7, you're totally cool with a guy who's just really, really productive, if that's how it goes. He is, and at his size, he is what they thought he would be. So, and they let him go for some reason. Maybe he just didn't fit with LeBron. I don't know. Every other player is bust-ish, right? The distance between Lonzo Ball and De'Aaron Fox is massive. I mean, the argument can be made that Lonzo Ball is one of the worst players in his draft class in terms of the top end of it and guards overall.
Well, you gotta remember, the guy that went number what?
Well, Markel?
Yeah. So
I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
But I said one of.
Yeah. It was
So. But you look at everybody else, they're much happier with that. And not that he's a bad player, but one of the discussions we were constantly having was like Frank Ntilikina, and I've been saying consistently, at their ages and development, and I'm looking at the mechanics of everything, my expectation of Frank Ntilikina is hopefully he can be an excellent defensive backup point guard who can hit the 3 consistently and play the pick and roll at a solid level.
I think that's pretty much what I think it's been, even though I know he's still young, I think it's kind of proven that that's probably what his ceiling is.
I wouldn't put a ceiling on him because he's literally still growing. So I don't know. And he's a hard worker. So players that young, I don't put a ceiling on them. I mean, Moutier looked like an absolute bust, and now he averaged 20 points for the entire month of December.
See, I never thought he looked like a bust.
But he literally did look like a bust. But he was a bust. Like,
because he had flashes, really strong flashes in Denver, and then he fell out of favor with the coaching staff, and then so he's you could see the production drop. Then I have yet to see any of those kinds of long-term flashes from Frank.
Frank's super young, and he has shown flash. But point being, this ain't about Frank Ntilikina. Point being, what I said was Frank is drafted in a place where he's not ever going to get a big contract from us. He's not expected to be a big contract from us, but we need to draft defense at some point. And if we drafted a defensive role player, that's great. The problem with Lonzo Ball is that he's drafted to be the starter, the franchise point guard. And so you're never going to pay him that mid-contract comfortably. That's not what you want at number 2. That's not what you were looking for from his skill set. You were looking for him to change the culture of your organization. And while I don't think he's a terrible NBA player, he's definitely not what you want from a second-round draft pick. Brandon Ingram, out of all of the young guys, he's the one who fits the least in with LeBron because he's a guy who needs the ball and he can't hit the 3. He needs to be somewhere else where his usage can go up and he can develop and grow in that group. I also don't think he's a terrible player, but he doesn't look like he's going to flourish into a superstar that can play with LeBron. Kyle Kuzma, excellent number 3 guy, looks like what he is. Josh Hart, excellent rotation shooter guy. But
and a really good and a really strong defender.
Getting better on that end. That's great. He's a young guy, so we look to see improvements from that. But the thing that we got from the Lakers was really that the veterans that people had questions about, Lance, Rondo, even later on Tyson Chandler. I know JaVale's hurt. We've seen him before, though. Those guys, Magic and LeBron, were right. Having playmakers and defenders and guys with grit and experience is good for LeBron, is good for the Lakers. We can take that away. But from the young talent perspective, they could take every player under the age of 25 on that team and ship them out of town if they could get somebody better. And I don't just mean Anthony Davis. I mean anybody good. Anybody good. And completely rebuild it. So the young players, nothing from the young players. Who cares? There's not a young player on that roster that I wouldn't give a who cares to.
Kuzma's the only one that I would Kuzma's the only one that I would consider like you'd have it if it's not Anthony Davis. I'm not including him in a deal.
Klay Thompson.
If it's not Anthony Davis, I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
Boy.
Because the thing about Kuzma is, I think Kuzma is one of those rare role player type players who it's Lamar Odom-ish to me. Not saying his game is like Lamar Odom, but it's Lamar Odom-ish in the fact that he's an extremely high level, versatile player who is fine not being the star.
Yeah, he's like an all-star light.
He's an all-star light guy. Yeah. And that guy fits with whoever your number one is all the time, no matter what it does. And he's so young. And because of that, I like I said, it have to be Anthony Davis. And Klay Thompson's amazing. Klay Thompson's an outstanding.
I would definitely get rid of Kuzma for Klay. I mean, I like Kuzma. I said, Kuzma is the one guy that I think is clearly we got to keep him on the roster.
But I would have chosen Randall over Ingram.
I am inclined to agree with you because Randall was turning into a monster.
And and Randall is a dude that I know what you are.
Yeah.
I know what you are. You are since we're using the term light, you're Chris Webber light. That's what you are, that, and I know that's what you are, and every team can use that guy. You know what I mean? Every team can use the hustler, rebounder, finisher.
Yeah, I look at him more in the Paul Millsap role, but yeah,
I don't. Only reason I would say that because only reason I don't give him that because I don't see him ever being able to expand the. I don't see him ever being able to expand the range the way Paul Millsap did. And he's bigger than Paul Millsap. And I think he's more of a traditional big than Paul Millsap. Paul Millsap's kind of like Paul Millsap's about 6'7", 6'7.5". He's about 6'7". They say 6'8" or 6'9", but he's about 6'7", 6'7.5". He's a smaller power forward. And I think that Randall's more of a legit traditional power forward, but he's an athletic traditional power forward. He's far more athletic than Paul Millsap. So that's why I lean more towards Chris Webber-ish, but not quite at that level, but not far off because Randall's production is pretty. Randall's the only one pushing. Here it is. Cue it up. Randall's the only one pushing my guy Derrick Rose for the 6th man of the year.
Oh, we're not gonna do that.
I had to, but it was relevant. It was relevant. It was relevant.
We're not gonna do that.
We talked about 6th man. We talked about 6th man.
You can promise the people if you want to. We could argue about the 6th man next show.
But I mean,
they want to tune in for that.
They're the two guys running for 6th man right now.
If you want to have that discussion, we can have that next time. We ain't gonna do that though.
I was just saying. I'm just saying.
Pocket, I'll be weak. I'm rather unique.